Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today? Ready for some new stories from Ask a Lawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP's brother-in-law, who tried to steal OP's son's inheritance. Well, but OP is a tough cookie, and didn't let it happen. Listen to the story to find out how, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My ex-husband and I had a son, 11 now. 4 years ago we divorced, and he moved into the outhouse of his aging dad. Last year my ex died of a sudden stroke. Our marriage ended on good terms, so at the funeral, my ex-father-in-law offered us to come over and look through my ex's stuff to see if we wanted anything. He also said that we should take our time, as it's not going anywhere. It took us 6 weeks to gather the strength, only to realize that most of his stuff was already gone. We asked my ex-father-in-law about it, who was as surprised as us. He explained my ex's brother was there a couple of times to check on the house and occasionally get some documents. After a lot of pressing, my ex-brother-in-law admitted that he sold or threw away most things to prepare the house to be rented out. My son and I were heartbroken. My ex-father-in-law was too, but took this as a sign to add something to his will. My son and he both were history buffs and bonded over that. My ex-father-in-law also had a small collection of historical artifacts, books, and other trinkets that was his biggest pride. And after the whole ordeal with my ex, he put it in his will that my son is to inherit it. 2 weeks ago, my ex-father-in-law passed. We waited until after the funeral before we went over to get the collection. First time, ex-brother-in-law told us he was in a hurry at the moment, and we should come back later. The next day, he told us he couldn't find it. Must have been lost or the old man got rid of it. Hell, for all I know, it could have been stolen. I saw red. As soon as I was back home, I called the cops and told them the story, and made sure to stress my ex-brother-in-law's suspicion that it might have been stolen. They must have finally come around to investigate, because yesterday I received a call from a furious ex-brother-in-law that the police were at his home. After realizing there was neither remorse nor urgency in his voice, I doubled down with a bluff, and told him that I'm suspecting that there might have been cultural goods in the collection that would have needed to be registered, and that I was just about to call the cops again because this would escalate this from simple theft to antiques fencing. He had the collection dropped off at our house an hour later after he suddenly was able to find it. My son is over the moon, and I'm happy he has a way of connecting to his late granddad through the collection. Being a small town, this is now naturally the talk of the city, and I have no doubts that the time the police were at their house will be brought up every time someone says ex-brother-in-law's name for years to come. And of course everybody is picking sides, and through the vineyard, I heard that some people are painting me as a greedy a-hole, while others think the same of my ex-brother-in-law. While none of this will have an impact on my family, we're likely to move away now that there's not family left here. I do feel bad for maybe tainting my son's memory of his granddad and uncle by going for the nuclear option, and fear it might have been unproportional, as he could have genuinely just been unable to find it. So, am I the a-hole? OP is definitely not in the wrong here. OP would never have gotten the collection for her son if she had not done it this way. It is amazing the lengths greedy people go to make sure someone can't get inheritance items. The fact that he did it before, keeping OP's son from getting something from his father, shows the type of person he is. Anyone taking his side either is getting a story of how he is the victim from him or his friends like him. OP should not worry about it and move on. And now let's hear if the community agrees with me. B13 Evan Set Mariposa says, I don't think he was genuinely anything. You bluffed, and an hour later he found it. Yeah, right. Definitely not the a-hole. He deserves to have the cops visit, tag, follow him for the rest of his days. Bless his heart. Crock of Pot says, not the a-hole. I would call your brother-in-law a vulture, except that's pretty harsh on actual vultures, who are useful to the ecosystem. You fought and protected your son's inheritance. Any small-town gossips who don't see that have either been fed a skewed version of events or are just as greedy grabby as brother-in-law. Far Anteater 256 says, not the a-hole. There's no way ex-brother-in-law was genuinely unable to find it. If he coughed up everything a mere hour after you threatened to escalate the issue further with the police, he's just mad he got caught. Mother-in-law is a corporate lawyer. She makes bank, has a corner office, and went to one of the best law schools in the country. Obviously, she is very intelligent. Mother-in-law is getting married in June and is bent out of shape because we are refusing to come, And what will her friends think? My boyfriend doesn't wish to attend because she is marrying her affair partner. Mother-in-law is very adamant that they never had S while she was with father-in-law, but my boyfriend has pointed out she still had an emotional affair because how else do you fall in love while you are married? My boyfriend and I are both very anti-cheating and don't spend much time with mother-in-law due to that. Mother-in-law desperately wants to be forgiven for 2 reasons: her parents judging her and not wanting people to question where her son is at the wedding. Honestly, I hope she is happy. She seems happy, and that is saying something, because I've known the woman for years, and she was always just sad and quiet, but is totally different now. Anyway, it got brought up last night, and my boyfriend told mother-in-law he doesn't care if she was putting out or not. She still had an affair. Mother-in-law said she doesn't understand how an emotional affair is different from having a friend. I explained it to her, and she said she still doesn't get it, and that it just sounds like friendship. I tried a 3rd time, and mother-in-law said it still doesn't make sense. At this point, I got frustrated and said, how is she this dumb and this successful? Did she duck her way to the top? Mother-in-law was quiet and stared at me for a moment, and then was like, wow, because I've never heard that one before, and told me to get out. A few people said I was too hard on her, but my boyfriend thought it was hilarious. I get I was kind of a D, but I hate cheaters. Edit for the people saying she didn't cross any lines. She spent literally every free second either with him or talking to him, and father-in-law has shown us screenshots. Even if I give her the benefit of the doubt that they weren't sleeping together, they were flirting, him talking about wanting her in his office, talking about hating sleeping alone. She sent a picture of her breasts and asked if he liked her bathing suit for a work trip, freely saying I love you and alluding to other physical affection. She did cross several lines. I think OP is in the wrong here, as well as her boyfriend, for being extremely judgmental and assuming they understand the dynamics of both his parents' marriage and her relationships beginning with her now partner. Relationships are complicated and messy. Ending them is complicated and messy. Married people fall out of love. Married people fall in love with others, and that can be the catalyst to end an already dead marriage. I would find it really annoying too if someone can't understand the difference between an emotional affair and friendship. But it's pretty uncool to be mean about it, as was OP. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Mission Revolution 306 says, "You're the a-hole. No one has to stay in an unhappy marriage. You even admitted she used to be so sad. Now she is happy. It's likely she didn't realize just how unhappy she was until she realized she could feel for someone else. The reality is, she didn't cheat physically, which is the legal definition, and since she is an attorney, that would be how she sees cheating. You decided to use a very S attack on her because you couldn't get her to carry a scarlet A and feel shame. Both you and your boyfriend need to grow up, realize humans aren't perfect, and neither are you." In February, it came out that my father had a child out of marriage. Let's call him Ollie, and Ollie is 24. It was a shock since no one expected it, but we took the test and he is Dad's son. He's an okay guy, but I grew up with 3 siblings, and they're the only siblings I'll ever know. So we don't have much of a relationship, but I acknowledge him, and we get along when we see each other. June 18th is my father's birthday, and what would have been my parents' 50th anniversary. My mother had been really looking forward to this milestone while he was alive, so we planned this small party to celebrate what would have been 50 years of marriage and his birthday. Just a nice lunch with my aunt, uncles, and grandmother, as well as a visit to his grave. My sister told Ollie about the plan, and he asked to be involved since we're celebrating Dad's birthday. The problem is that my mother is still struggling to accept him, the fact that Dad cheated. She's in therapy for this. And since this is a dual birthday and wedding anniversary, inviting the kid he had out of marriage seems like adding salt to the wound. So I said no, he couldn't be involved in the party. However, we can make arrangements to go to the grave as siblings with him afterwards, and then have dinner together on me since he is Dad's son in the end. My sister told me Ollie was offended and mad at me for treating him like an outsider, and tried to come gatecrash, but my husband saw him outside and just asked him not to. I only found out about this afterwards. Him and my 2 sisters ended up going to the grave alone after everything ended and have dinner without me. I understand where he's coming from, but also believe I made a fair compromise under the circumstances. Am I the a-hole? OP was doing something special for her mom. Ollie didn't need to be involved. OP made a fair compromise to include him in the birthday dad part. They are definitely in the wrong here for gatecrashing when knowingly uninvited, and good catch on OP's husband for dealing with it and not causing drama during the party. OP and her husband acted in OP's mom's best interest. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Minute Box 3852 says, "Not the a-hole. Your poor mother is having to come to terms not only with her husband's death, but his horrible betrayal. Their 50th anniversary and his birthday is not the time and place for the embodiment of that betrayal to impose himself. Your dad is dead. He's not going to be there. The family your father betrayed are the ones in attendance. Your half-brother is an adult. He should be able to understand the overall issue and not expect your poor mom to be okay with this right now." Dragon Mom 03 says, "I don't understand why your sister told him the plan to begin with, knowing your mom is still struggling with the affair. In what world does she live in that your mom would be okay celebrating a huge milestone with Ollie there? You came up with a compromise, and that wasn't enough. Your sisters, Ollie, are a-holes." Hadiac says, "Not the a-hole. You offered to go visit your father's grave with him. He has no real business with the marriage celebration. Coming to Gatecrash is just too much. I get he might not like being excluded, but he's 24 years old. So if you want that bond with your half-siblings, then you can't just have it your own way. Gotta compromise." My sister was married to Toby for 6 years. They had 2 kids together in that time. My niece is now 9 and my nephew is now 8. They divorced pretty soon after the kids were born. Toby has remained single, but my sister remarried 3 years ago. She has a stepdaughter from her husband's past relationship, and they have custody of his niece as well. They also had a baby together 2 months ago. My sister and Toby share custody of their kids. Toby is better off financially than my sister. He pays child support for the kids, and he covers all medical expenses per their court order. But Toby can still afford to treat them and buy them stuff they want. According to my sister, they have fancy lunch boxes, whatever that means, and have gaming consoles and laptops at their dad's house. He takes them to fun places, and he can pay for a birthday party wherever they want. He'll also buy them nice clothes and shoes. I never saw the problem with this, but my sister said it caused some tension in their house because the girls are jealous of what her kids have and are jealous of the fact they have much better birthday parties than them. My sister actually told Toby he needs to start ensuring that her other kids have the same things. She said he's making sure their kids together will never bond with their stepsister, step-cousin, and half-brother by making it clear they have more. She told him he also needs to invite those kids to the parties he throws for their kids. Toby told her no and said it was her job to worry about her other kids, but he's not doing a single thing for the rest of her kids. My sister has been pretty ragey since he refused, and she complains about it a lot. Eventually, she told me all about it when it was just the 2 of us, and she mentioned how she wants Toby to basically pay money for the girls and her new son, and that she wants him to buy them gifts and let the kids she shares with him bring the stuff he buys them to her house so everyone can get a use out of them. She said it's selfish for him not to care about the other kids. She claims he has a responsibility. I said she was sounding very entitled with that attitude, and she needs to understand she's responsible for more than 2 kids. But Toby, he only has 2 and is only responsible for those 2. My sister said it's not entitled to expect people to put the kids first, and duck me. Am I the a-hole? Aggressive 2 says, "Not the a-hole. Tell your sister that she and her current husband need better jobs if she wants her kids to be spoiled, instead of hounding her ex to financially look after kids that aren't his." J-Mac Files says, "Not the a-hole. She is acting entitled, and it's weird that she expects her ex to support her other children." Heloise Morris says, "Not the a-hole. Your sister is delusional if she thinks her ex-husband has to provide for her stepchildren and the child she has had with her second husband. Her ex-husband is a single parent of 2 children. It sounds like she's more upset she can't afford the same things he provides for his children, and that he keeps the laptop and gaming systems he has bought for the children to use at his home, because she wants to commandeer them for the family, which leads me to believe it's the reason he keeps them at his house." I, 31 female, have an older sister, 36 female, who is married to her husband, 41 male, and they have a 1-year-old son together. I work for a company that works in the US and the UK. Due to the nature of my specific role in the company, I must travel between the US and the UK for the company. This means I often spend half of the year in the US and half the year in the UK. I get 6 weeks of annual leave a year, so I took 3 weeks in the US to catch up with friends and 3 weeks in the UK to spend in the UK and catch up with my friends and family where we were initially from. Because of my time in the US, I decided to buy a 3-bedroom apartment in the heart of New York City, where the company is also found in the US. The British company is based in central London. My boyfriend is an only child, but he also mentioned he's got family, such as cousins, aunts, and uncles in the US, and he would love to go and visit them one day. Before my sister had their child, my sister mentioned that she would love to go to New York City to see her husband's side of the family with him. Now that they've had their child, they feel that it's time to go and visit their family. It's worth mentioning, but my brother-in-law's family are entirely British and immigrated to the US. My brother-in-law earns a decent salary in the UK, but primarily goes on the mortgage, their kid, and their household. My sister works part-time, but most of her income goes to her bills and their son. They have enough money to make it last for the month, as a just in case they need to buy stuff. My brother-in-law and sister are only open to family members about their finances, whereas I'm more private, and they don't know how much I earn, and I like to keep it that way. A few days ago, my sister video called me to catch up, and she was talking about how she and her husband feels now is the perfect time to go to America. She told me they've saved the money for the plane tickets there and back. They've got spending money, but they can't afford accommodations yet. My sister knows I have an apartment in New York City because of my job, and she asked me if she could stay in my apartment. I know it's not an answer, but I have that gut feeling that something about this trip isn't right. So I made the choice to say no. My sister understands that I said no, and she accepts it, but she's a little upset. I spoke to my best friend about this, and she was honest in saying she thinks I'm being an a-hole because I won't let them stay in my apartment, which I'm not currently occupying. She told me to come here and get some judgment from an outside perspective to see if I'm an a-hole. I do feel like I'm being an a-hole because I've said no to my sister, brother-in-law, and nephew staying at my apartment, which would half their expenses for a 2-week vacation over a gut feeling. So, am I the a-hole? Cake is a die says, not the a-hole. It's not an obligation, but you aren't there. They aren't a-holes for asking. You aren't an a-hole for saying no. But not really sure why you don't want to help family. A hotel room in central New York City would be $2,000 to $3,000 for 2 weeks minimum. Worried Sandwich 9456 says, obviously people will say you don't owe your apartment to anyone, and of course you don't. And your sister has accepted it with grace. So there's no need to be accusing anyone of entitlement. But why don't you want to? You seem to care for and respect your sister and her little fam. You aren't giving any sort of examples of crap she pulls that makes you not want her in your flat. So while you don't have to let them stay there, there's no rules that say we can't be happy to let our sister, who we love, use our empty flat for a couple of weeks and help out family, knowing they won't take advantage of your place and it's not putting you out in any way. So what's the gut feeling about the trip not being right?